Welcome Home, a podcast for veterans, about veterans by veterans, is a project of Willing Warriors and the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run.
Good morning. I'm your host, Larry Ziliaks, Director of Culinary Services here at the Warrior Retreat. And today we have with us Caleb Johnson, who's the Northern Regional Director for the Virginia Department of Veterans Services, Virginia Veteran and Family Support Office. Welcome.
Thank you.
I really wanted to talk about what your agency does for veterans and how it's different than the VA. You, of course, bring services to veterans who live within the Commonwealth of Virginia, but you offer a lot of services that mirror what the VA does, but the veteran doesn't need to deal with the VA. They can come directly to you for services. So if you could just tell us a little bit about what your department does and what services you offer here in Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are part of state government, and every state in the union has a Department of Veteran Services at the state government level. Sometimes they're called Department of Veteran Affairs. We're called Department of Veteran Services. But across the U.S., the primary thing that most state governments provide veterans is benefits and filing disability claims. So because we are in Virginia and Virginia's initials are our VA, we often get confused with the VA. It's kind of the story of our lives.
I bet.
But Virginia is one of the top states that offers a really, really wide scope of services. So I'll just go through some of those departments here before I explain a little bit more about my department. So we have our benefits division, and so our benefits division, they file disability claims. There's also a lot of other benefits that they file for that they can assist with. Some other examples would include they can help you enroll for healthcare in the VA if you're eligible. They can also apply for pension. We can give you guidance if you're 100% permanent total on how you can get a tax exemption for your personal property taxes. But our benefits department is a little bit unique in that we're actually directly kind of linked into the VA system, so we can actively pull up a file and kind of see what's happening with that in real time. And additionally, our benefits personnel are all trained and certified. That takes about a 6-month process. So one thing that you can have assurance with when you come meet with one of our specialists is that you're getting someone who's trained and certified and actually completely knows what they're doing 100%. There's a lot of great people doing a lot of great things with benefits. But this is what they live and breathe day in, day out. We also have our cemeteries division. And so basically, if you're a Virginia resident and you have an honorable discharge, you can be buried for free at one of our state cemeteries in the state of Virginia, and know that the state is always going to maintain that land there.
Real quick, let me ask you a question. Does that benefit transfer to a spouse?
So, sort of. I don't have because it's not my division, I should know the answer to this, but I believe that this is so awkward to say, so don't quote me on this. I can find you the right answer, but I believe that they're buried at a discount.
Okay.
But I'd have to go back and check to know 100% for sure.
Okay.
But they can be buried next.
Yeah,
they can't have their spouse and family
together. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the most important part. Yeah.
And so in addition to that, we have our Veterans Care Centers, and those are what we can traditionally in older terms think of as nursing homes. We currently have 2 of those care centers, and we're building 2 more. One of them will be very close to where we're at right now, in Fauquier County in Vint Hill. That project was a little bit delayed by COVID, so we don't have an exact opening date, but they are actively staffing, hiring the staff to be able to provide services at that facility right now. So
it sounds like they're close.
Yeah, they're definitely close. They're definitely rounding a corner with that.
Good.
We also have the Virginia War Memorial in Richmond. If you haven't been there, it's an amazing facility. One thing that personally means a lot to me about it is we have the names of every single Virginia veteran who has ever paid the ultimate sacrifice for every war era on individual walls, breaking down by war eras, and depending on which war era it is, they also have them broken down by county too. So historically, it's pretty cool. They just finished a renovation there recently because, unfortunately, it was last year. They ran out of names. They ran out of space to put names on the wall. But it's a beautiful facility. If you haven't been there, I definitely encourage you to go. And is of course free to enter and get a tour.
Sure.
We also have our Veteran Services Foundation. So this is a foundation that supports us with, and they receive private donations, and the donations that they receive do not go to staff salaries or anything like that. They go directly to benefit the veteran. So some things that we use that money for, primarily in my region, is to provide mental health care at no cost. And so one of the things that we run into a lot is veterans here in DC, on the DC metropolitan area in Northern Virginia, have issues getting into DC. They don't have appointments available all the time in the time frame they need them. So we contract with private providers that have experience in working with the military population, and they can receive that treatment at no cost to them. We also use those funds to house homeless veterans, and so those are kind of the two big buckets that those funds come into play with. So my division, well, I got one more before I get into my division, actually. So we also have our education and training division. They have quite a few different programs under them. They have a women veterans program. They also they're kind of the equivalent of my service line, Virginia Veteran Family Support, specifically for that population. But we also they also have the V3 program, and that's actually a kind of a nationally renowned program. And so in that program, we actually train employers on how to hire veterans and what that'll look like for them, how they can market to veterans, and for every veteran they hire, they get paid, I think it's $1,500 per veteran. That might have actually gone up a little bit recently. And then on the back side of that, we also have a very small but mighty team that works to connect veterans with those jobs, with employers. And their target population is veterans who are within 6 months of discharge. So that's again a really cool program. I wish I had the numbers on the amount of veterans that they hired, but it's definitely in the tens of thousands. And then there's my service line, Virginia Veteran and Family Support. And so our focus is on mental health treatment, peer support, and literal homelessness. And what I mean by literal homelessness is veterans who are unsheltered, living in a car under a bridge. But in addition, we also work with most any situation that is presented to us. In terms of eligibility, it doesn't cost anything to work with us. And doesn't matter what discharge, doesn't matter what war era, we work with everyone. So we have a staff here in Northern Virginia, small team of 12, and they do quite a few different things. So the majority of our staff are resource specialists, and you can kind of think of them as social workers, but all of my staff have a personal connection with this population, whether they're veterans, spouse of veterans, or family members of veterans. And so this work is personal to us, and it means a lot. So they work one-on-one with veterans, and they connect them to local resources at the nonprofit level, like your organization here, at the state level, at the county level, and we work with the VA closely too as well. And so we will connect veterans to employment. We assist homeless veterans with getting housed through community resources. But in our region, the big need that we see is for mental health treatment, and that's largely due to the high amount of combat veterans that we have in this area, being close to the capital and the federal government, and all the military bases around here as well. And so, probably about half of our population is Iraq, Afghanistan veterans.
Okay.
And then, but like I said, we work with veterans of all eras. So Vietnam, years ago, I worked with a World War II veteran who was 99. It was a really, really cool, enlightening experience. And so, that's our resource specialists. They connect, they do the best they can do to connect to resources based on the need. We also have peer specialists on our team. And so peer specialists work one-on-one with veterans who are struggling, and they could be struggling with anything, but most often it's with PTSD, traumatic brain injury, depression, anxiety. And our peer specialists have gone through their own recovery. So that recovery could include PTSD, TBI, and or substance use. And that puts them in a position to connect one-on-one personally to a veteran and be able to say, we can't ever know what someone else experienced because we didn't experience it ourselves. But here's my experience. This is what I struggled with. This is what I learned. And this is today how I live my life, and how I'm able to cope with PTSD and other struggles. And that's a great connection point for someone who doesn't want therapy or isn't ready for therapy. I'm actually a clinician myself, and I'm a huge believer in peer support because I have seen veterans. I'm also a big believer in treatment and therapy too, but I've seen veterans work with a peer specialist and never go to therapy and just completely turn their lives around. So again, this works really personal for us. So they also run peer support groups. Those were in person before the pandemic, and we are transitioning back to those in-person groups now. They've been run virtually up until now, so we'll continue to have both of those options available. We have had our support group running for almost 10 years now, and that's a great connection point for a veteran who is just looking for a little bit of community support. They don't have to be combat veterans. I'd say it's probably about 50-50, combat veterans and non-combat veterans. And that's also really important because there's a lot for no matter what branch or war area you served, everyone had their own experience, their own story, their own struggle. And there's a lot to be shared and learned through that in that community that we provide. And just to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like a little bit, we have some ground rules: no religion, no politics, and if there is a war story, we want there to be a learning experience to it, not for the sake of kind of showing off and measuring your experience versus someone else. That is absolutely not what we are about. But with those ground rules, the idea is that we can support each other, learn from each other, work as a team like we did in the military, and move forward with some new tools and a community of support.
So I can say I've seen that in action in the sense that we do every year a home away from home dinner, which is a home cooked Thanksgiving dinner for about 50 warriors and family members the Sunday before Thanksgiving. And a number of years ago, we started to invite Vietnam veterans, World War II veterans, and mix those in with our modern day active duty soldier. And at the start, everybody thought, well, I don't know, how will it work? But it turns out that absent the type of equipment they were using, it was almost the identical experience. It didn't matter the conflict. And so they had a lot in common. They had a lot more in common than what they thought. And so I think having that broad range of veteran, combat, non-combat, are these co-ed groups
Yes,
male and
yeah.
female?
We have both options actually. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that across the spectrum really makes a difference in the quality of the peer support, but it's got to be one of the strongest programs you have, I think. It's just, and I think now that the pandemic's over and we're moving away from Zoom, the quicker you can have them in person, the better off, because
Absolutely.
isolation is such a large component of that dynamic that leads a warrior to suicide. And getting a ride, getting a buddy to go with you is really, really important. So I think that's great that you guys have them here, especially locally in the Northern Virginia area. The other benefit that I was very interested in hearing about was the employment assistance. And when a veteran comes to your organization, are you handling many things at the same time for them? Because when it comes to homelessness with veterans, you're always going to see substance abuse and most likely mental health issues. Mm-hmm. So giving somebody a home without those added services, it's not going to work. And so what about that veteran that needs multiple services? Are they given a caseworker, or is this the specialist that works with them?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I wanted to back up just a second. I would be remiss and probably in big trouble if I didn't also mention that our program doesn't serve just veterans, my service line. We also assist family members as well. So, for instance, we also have a spousal support group. And everything that I said already, we also provide that service to family members. So, right. I mentioned that the foundation provides funds for veterans to seek treatment. A lot of times that also involves couples therapy too. Mm-hmm. To answer your question, yes, they provide. We do sometimes work with someone on just one need. It's a wide range of the, sometimes we're working with someone for a week, and sometimes, it would be up to a year. But in terms of the homelessness, you're absolutely right. So we work from a housing first model. So our first goal is to get them housed immediately, because if you don't have shelter, it's kind of hard to get a job and to be able to function in life. So oftentimes, like you said, there's mental health issues involved and or substance abuse. And so as we're working to get them housed, those other things are starting to happen in the background in terms of connecting them with employment, getting them mental health treatment. Mm-hmm. And so it's not, okay, you're housed, you're good to go. Because as you said, that's not, that doesn't really solve what's probably the core of the problem.
The root problem. Yeah.
It addresses the symptoms, but not the cause. And so that work doesn't end there. We will work with them, until we are able to meet their needs as best we can. Mm-hmm. I will say that, our specialty in my program is definitely mental health in the little homeless population. Mm-hmm. We do work with a lot of other things like employment, and just it's really wide ranging. I just came from the office, and one of my staff was picking up food to connect a veteran to drop off at a veteran's house. So mm-hmm. We are very much out in the field, connecting with veterans. They don't have to come into our office. We are a low barrier program. We will come to them if that's what we need to do. Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question?
Yes, for sure. The other category that I was very interested in is benefits, and then as it relates to claims and help with filing claims. In my own case, you guys are handling a VA claim for me, which is a subsequent claim. I'm a disabled veteran, but then with the PAC Act just being passed, I qualify for additional benefits, and you guys are filing that and acting as my representative for that, which I really appreciate. But with the PAC Act, have you seen an increase in claims people coming to you for claims benefits assistance?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm not sure that I can accurately answer it without it being my service line, but I do feel like we definitely it certainly opened the aperture a lot. And so my guess would be the answer to that is probably yes. We certainly got a lot of questions about it. So whenever something like this happens, it's like, popping a flare. Like, hold on, we got to make sure that we understand everything that just happened, this law that passed, so we can accurately answer these questions as they come in as best as possible.
Yeah. With claims and housing, something that's relatively new within the last couple of years is veteran courts and a veteran justice program. And I know we have that in Virginia. Can you talk a little bit about your experience there?
Yep. Took the words out of my mouth. So we have kind of three different specialties with my service line. Just the resource work that I already spoke about, the peer specialist work that I already spoke about, and then there's the justice program. So I came to work in this region about 10 years ago, and at that point there weren't any veteran dockets. Whether by happenstance, or not, I immediately started seeing a connection there with some of the combat veterans in particular that we are working with, and getting involved in the judicial system. It's really heartbreaking to kind of watch that happen when you have someone serve their country, lost people, and then comes back and now they have criminal charges hanging overhead, or they are in jail. So I had the really unique honor of watching this process start to play out in Virginia, and it had already been in play in a lot of other states. So we were kind of playing a little bit of catch up in terms of that. But the first veteran docket started in Fairfax, and as that was ending the nearing of its planning phase, and I will say Fairfax really took all the time that they needed. I want to say it was probably about a year and a half to iron out all the details before they started it up, and that paid off tremendously. But as they neared the end of that planning process, that's when we started the actual justice program. And so our justice specialists, it looks a little bit different in each region, and Virginia is a very diverse state in a lot of different ways. But in my region, we have gigantic jails. Some of the I don't know where Fairfax County lands in the country, but there's a decent amount of veterans that are involved in that. So they are working with veterans who they're working with veterans across the whole spectrum of criminal justice. So they could have a DUI and they're on probation and not in jail. They could be in jail serving some time, and we'll make that connection. And then as they get close to their release date, then we'll start planning their reentry to civilian society. Or they could be in prisons. We only have one prison in my region, so most of our work is more with veterans involved in the jails. So then with the docket, in Northern Virginia right now, we have not just Fairfax, but Prince William came after them, and Loudoun came after them, and Loudoun actually just held their very first actual docket last week. Our staff member sits on what's called a treatment team with them, and that treatment team, basically, they're the ones that they get a referral. They make sure that it's appropriate for the docket, and they're literally planning the support and treatment for that veteran. So on that team, you have a judge, you have your prosecutors, your defense, your parole, your probation, and we have someone from we have a VA employee there too that works specifically with justice population. And so our role on that team is kind of like a gap filler. And so things will come up where maybe the veteran's struggling with they don't have transportation to get to their appointment, or it's too far away, or there's too long of a wait time. So we don't have like a transportation program, but we might be able to get them get them something else like a bus pass or something to get to their appointment. Other times where the VA isn't able to provide that treatment quick enough. Most of the time they actually can. But we can step in and say, hey, we can pay for them to work with a private clinician that's right down the road, and they can get in, this week with them. And so there's a lot of other nitty gritty support things that come up with that. But that's what our role looks like, on those treatment teams. And we're involved we're on the treatment teams for all three of those dockets. But we also work outside. Not every veteran who has criminal justice involvement in Fairfax County wants to be on the docket. Not every veteran can be on the docket, but their eligibility it's a very good model. It's very broad.
And to be clear for our listeners, the idea that the docket was set up as some way of using PTS as an excuse for their actions, that's just not what it is about. It's about lining treatment and resources up for that individual if they agree to be part of the program and have their case heard through the veteran docket. I'm sure that it's taken into account that they're in the program, but PTS, TBI, these are not excuses for their actions.
Yes, that's a great point. Absolutely not. That is 100% not the idea behind it. So just to give an idea of what this looks like, if you're a veteran who has some sort of charge, and I'll just use let's say a second DUI, for example. If you want to get on the docket, then we want to make sure that you want to get treatment, because that's what this is. That's what this process is really about. They may have the option to at the end, when they complete the treatment docket, they may have the option to have their charge changed in some way that benefits them, and that would be obviously up to the judge. But that can be a year. That can be it can be a little over a year that they're in the program, and it could be up to 2 years. It kind of depends. They have different kind of stages that they move through. But to be honest, especially if it's your first DUI, the easier thing is not to get on the docket. It's to just take the charge and do what you need to do with the probation and requirements that come after that. Being on the docket actually requires a lot more effort, a lot more requirements. So in this example, it actually takes a lot more effort to go through the treatment docket than it would be to just take the normal route in the criminal justice system.
Well, in a case like that, though, too, I think there are probably some outside influences, like a wife and a boss, that are pushing them towards the docket, hopefully, to say, you need this treatment. You need to not just get out of it as quickly as you can. I would hope that they would choose the docket and all the services that come with it, because it's a great program. I've seen it work in other jurisdictions. I've seen it work where a judge will suspend sentencing based on their completion of the program, and then it's either expunged or it's time served, which was usually overnight. So I've seen it in action, and it definitely works, and I'm glad we have it in Virginia. It's about time. That really sort of brings us to the end. I think we've touched on a lot of the services that you all provide. What's the best way for a veteran or a caregiver to get in touch with you?
Oh, wow. We have people reach out to us by so many different means. But really, just give us a call. I can, if we pause, I can get you a number that we could put out.
It's on your webpage.
But you. So the other part is, this is a very new initiative. But if you just go to our website, say you maybe don't want to call, you can. We have a red Get Assistance button, and you click on Get Assistance, and it has a broken down into each service line category. And you put some very minimal information. And I mean, like, when I say minimal, I mean name, phone number, and county that you live and what you need. We get that, and our commissioner is great at testing the waters. Whenever we have something roll out like this, we'll see a name pop up and be like, wait, who's it? And we call, yep, I was just checking the thing, makes things work. You guys responded, quickly. I sent it at 5:00 last night and you guys called me at 10. That's not bad. So we're definitely very responsive.
Good.
For sure.
Good. And I'd just like to say from my personal experience that the Virginia Department of Veteran Services is an organization that is out in the community wanting to help veterans. It's not, we're an agency, we're sitting back here, and if you need help, you come find us, and we'll probably help you. But you guys, from my own personal experience, we are part here at the Warrior Retreat of the Northern Virginia Veterans Coalition, which is primarily veteran service organizations in Fairfax and Prince William, and a representative from your agency is always there. The Northern Virginia Veteran Suicide Coalition. We met yesterday. James from your agency was there. And with that Northern Virginia Veteran Suicide Coalition, Commissioner Gade was dialed in, zoomed in for the inaugural meeting of that. So we know that as a veteran service organization, that we always have you guys to fall back on as a resource. And from our standpoint, we really appreciate it. I think you guys do a phenomenal job, and hopefully some of our listeners will think about some resources they might need if they need help with anything from claims, from benefits, from housing. Maybe they got a brother or a cousin or a friend who just got in trouble with the police, and they've got a court date coming up, and they're a veteran, and they have some PTS, and they have some substance abuse problems. Reach out, as a family member, as a friend, as a veteran. Just reach out and take advantage of these services. They're there, they want to help, and they do a fantastic job. So thank you, Caleb, for coming and joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you talking to me today. And it's always an honor to be in the position we are to work with other veterans.
Great. Well, thank you for listening. We'll have another episode here in a couple of weeks. Until then, we'll see you. Thanks. Bye.
The Welcome Home podcast is brought to you by Willing Warriors, a nonprofit organization serving active duty service members and veterans since 2012. To learn more, please visit our webpage at willingwarriors.org.